the levee. We all love this levee project, and we got funding for
Yes, we
phase
did.
2 of the accreditation. But there's annual inspections, there's maintenance that needs to be done. So our thought was, why don't we get some funding for just doing those repair work that needs to be done?
Do we have an idea, I mean, I know you guys have been out there, of what kind of scope of work would be needed to apply for as far as funding?
Right, we would have to look into that, and
We would get a list of whatever that is would need repaired?
Right.
Okay. All right.
The next one still involves the levee, but for future accreditation, looking at the spillway or pump station, that would go along with accrediting the levee. That's big construction costs. Again, CDBG kind of mentioned, the levee as a project, so that's when we were like, oh, okay, well, we could definitely use the funding there as well, so.
Let me just ask you, maybe this is just me. With the Army Corps of Engineers, they're really big on the levees, and they come out and they check our levee. And when it comes to that, they also have their own kind of funding. Is it possible for them to, at any point, coordinate something with us on this? Because it's a big project, and that spillway would be part of the flooding thing.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up, because as Laura said, we did get the new funding to continue the accreditation process. And once we got that funding, we immediately contacted the consultant that we had been working with. She's an expert in levees. I mean, honestly, she's statewide, maybe even nationally, she's one of the best. And we got pretty unfortunate, pretty surprising news from her that she's unable to continue to work with us on this. As shock to many of you that probably haven't heard this yet. So we were very devastated at first, not really knowing, okay, now what?
Yeah.
She's had her head in this thing, and it's a setback to have to kind of redirect. But the silver lining, we hope, is the Army Corps has all the resources available, as you could imagine. I mean, the Army Corps does unbelievable things. And we've been working with the Army Corps and some of their staff out of the section in Philadelphia. And very recently, with another client of ours, we became aware of funding that the Army Corps has. And what we're hoping to do, someone's getting back from vacation tomorrow, so I have a reminder to follow up tomorrow on this. We're hoping to see if the Army Corps can kind of pick up that ball and carry it. And who better to submit to FEMA a study than the Army Corps' letterhead on top of it? So we also think that we can use the money that we just got, $255. If you add the boroughs, 45, it's $300,000. We're sort of hoping that we can maybe kind of take that 45 we committed and maybe take it back and bring in that Army Corps money as the match. That puts 45 back in the borough's pockets. Scott's getting his eyes.
That's my preference.
And they'll actually do in-kind match. So for every dollar we give them, we have $255,000. They'll give us an equal amount of staff hours. So we can essentially double that money. And you say, well, geez, how much money do you need to get this thing accredited? We still don't know. As Laura said, we're talking about CDBG for some of these maintenance items. We know we have to do at least some of that. But we also strongly believe we're going to have to do, based on that preliminary work that Kim Dunn from T&M Associates had done, we think we're going to have to do a spillway above Calhoun Street. That's been talked about for years. That's sort of in the analysis becoming more and more of a yes, that has to happen. As well as a pump station for taking all the rain that's still going to land behind the levee in that bathtub and pump it up and out into the river when the river's high and it can't naturally drain out. So once we get determination of that defined scope, then we still have to design those particular items. It's going to take a lot of coordination with the canal folks, PennDOT, DEP, and it's all going to be part of that accreditation program. So 300 sounds like a lot of money, but it doesn't go that far when you look at the magnitude of what we're trying to accomplish in this overall accreditation program. So I'm going to leave that at that. We hope to give you more updates on that.
Okay.
But as that fits into the CDBG discussion, which is the heart of why we're here tonight, is get direction on where to move forward with CDBG. We have that listed as 5, even though the levee is a high priority, obviously, project for us. Because as Laura was saying, we don't know specifically what work needs to be done for that levee maintenance. The inspection Army Corps and DEP do identifies what needs to be done, but they say repair concrete. Well, we got to get out and figure out what's the extent of that concrete repair. What's the extent of that check valve repair? What condition are the pipes actually in? They say go inspect the pipes. Well, we got to get cameras up there to see. And that's what we're doing as part of that accreditation thing. So we might suggest that number 5 levee one just kind of hang out for a little bit. Maybe we don't go after that one this year.
I think it's too early.
It's a little too early. But let's be thinking about that one for next year.
Maybe when phase 2 of the study is done.
Right.
Okay.
And if you recall, part of getting this levee accreditation program going, we had to find money just to get seed money, to get that, right? We're always trying to, you always need some kind of match. So you got to get that catalyst money to get things flowing. And what we've been doing in order to get some of that seed money is we took some money from the annual maintenance levy funding that the borough had set aside, and we sort of diverted it into getting this levee accreditation program formally going. So this levy funding, if we went CDBG, it's a great way to use new money to then go back and do those deferred maintenance things. John's doing a great job trying to keep the levee intact, but cleaning off all the debris, cutting the grass, all that stuff. But so I'm going to jump back now and let Laura pick it back up there with where we were on this list.
All right, thank you.
Before you jump back, can I ask a levy question?
Sure.
Is there any benefit to the Toll Bridge Commission in us getting the levy certified or doing improvements? And are the bridge abutments considered part of the levy?
They're the end caps, so they are part of it. I don't think that FEMA's too worried about either one as far as being part of the levy itself. But I want to make sure I understood your question. Are you asking what role the Toll Bridge Commission or what benefit they would have?
Is there any benefit for them where we could go and essentially say, hey, we're spending this money to accredit the levy, your bridges essentially make up part of the levy, would you be willing to pay a little?
Let's ask them. Do we have to have somebody that works there? Right.
Doesn't hurt to ask, right?
It doesn't hurt to ask. If there's any work that they might have planned, maybe we can combine it. If you have to do waterside work, there might be a mutual benefit there.
Something,
I'll think about it because we always like to find excuses to ask other people for money.
Yeah.
And maybe they won't do money. Maybe they'll be like the Army Corps of Engineers and do something with time and
Maintenance and.
Sure.
Yeah.
more maintenance, with hours.
Yeah, I mean, I can think of now that I'm thinking about it a little more. There is a pipe that runs underneath Bridge Street that goes through their jurisdiction. So maybe if the condition of that pipe, maybe technically there's an argument it's their pipe, so we can see if they'll kick in and cooperate. So something to think about. Get some thought.
Yeah, definitely.
Doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah.
So Kurt, the pump station, that's because of the low-lying area and on the island area for drainage?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so we think it's going to be where the canal spills down by William Street.
Right.
We think the pump station's probably going to end up somewhere in that low point.
Gotcha. All right.
So-
That's where, it's backed up before and flooded there.
Yes.
You're talking on North Delmore and Maple?
From the canal.
Yes. Maple, yeah. That's
Yeah.
the street.
Okay.
So the idea would be we want to try to stop the canal from jumping out of its banks at
Right.
that spillway, at that a gate valve.
Right.
And we want to regulate that by going above Calhoun Street and having a fail-safe spillway. If
Which
water
is-
wants to come down
Which is automatic.
Lower Makefield
Right.
and Yardley,
Right.
it just cascades out and we have the grade. The canal banks are higher than the levee
Right.
and the 100-year storm of the Delaware River, so we can get the water at that point back out into the river.
Right.
So it never gets behind the levee. And that way, that gate valve, we'll just make sure that DCNR keeps that thing welded shut. So
Right.
part of the O&M maintenance, operation maintenance of monitoring the levee,
Yeah.
that doesn't fall apart and go to disrepair or ever get modified or whatever.
I think I remember at one time too, after the river had reached flood stage, somebody had opened it.
That's how
And-
the story goes, yeah.
Yeah, so,
Compounding the problem. So
Right.
we want to make it so no human interface, that it's like welded shut.
Mhm.
We got to, coordinate with the canal folks. It's a historic
Sure.
asset, so we can't
right,
just eliminate it. They're not going to look too kindly on that. But if we can somehow alter it so it can't be modified, then that might be the solution. But then no matter what we do to keep the canal from jumping the bank, we still have a watershed of the area behind the levee.
right,
When it's raining, and the river can stay up for 3 days. We've seen that. So river's up, it rains, water's coming down from, say, New York. The river comes down, it's up, and now we're getting rain behind the levee. Well, that's going to start filling in the bathtub. So we want to find that low point, which is going to be there by Maple, and put a pump that's going to pump that water back up and over the levee. So we have some preliminary hydraulic numbers from Kim Dunn from her assessment, and I think we were trying to apply for this next grant. So we're asking her, okay, we got this much flow rate. What size pump station we have to build? And our guys said, it's a funny story. Sorry, I got to take a minute to tell it. They said, well, that's a big pump station. Let's see what that would cost for construction, because we can estimate what the engineering design costs based like a percentage, 15, 20% of construction costs. And we found almost an identical size pump station in Texas, and the construction costs were $40 million.
Whoa.
We're like, oh boy,
Yeah.
it's complicated things.
That's a lot of cheddar.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we're going to just forget about that estimate.
Yeah.
We're going to keep plugging along, because I think we can find a solution here.
It's usually cheaper the second time around you build something.
And who knows, maybe they had to pump the water, it's Texas, man, it's a
Yeah,
big
yeah,
state.
pump
Maybe
it
they
over the
pump
state.
6 miles, we don't know. So
Out it goes.
Does the river being at flood stage, does that affect the water table level behind the levee? In other words, is there any possibility of the ground level water?
seeping through the levee, and that is a real thing. That is something that's part of this assessment.
Mhm.
And the other thing that's been done as part of this preliminary levee accreditation study is we did geotechnical boring. So we physically, no one has records from when the levee was constructed, so we don't really have geotech reports for the soils that they used. We still have to finalize that report. We just did some borings to get some eyes on what is out there, but we still got to crunch some numbers and see. But I think that our guys looked at that preliminary data and they think it's built real good. So it's not going to be a very permeable material, so we're not going to get a lot of, but there still will be some assumptions as to contributing water that could come from that
Right.
as part of that pump station analysis.
Okay. Thank you.
Do we have any idea as to when the phase 2 would begin?
I mean,
At this point-
it's beginning. Did we get the agreement signed yet with, we don't want to start spending the money too quickly, because they want signed grant agreements before you can start invoicing against that money. So we're working with DCED to get that executed. But we're already kind of vamping up here. It's starting. And like I said, we're we're trying to figure out if we can get Army Corps to really kind of be a heavy lift here. I've already spoken with the Congressman's office to try to get them to lean on the Army Corps. You know, if they kind of shrug us off, we want to make sure that he's pushing. Talk to State Rep Perry Warren's office. He's aware of this. They're going to start pushing. Senator Santaserra is aware of it. He's going to start pushing.
Okay.
So we're trying to circle the wagons and try to make sure that we can make good headway.
Good, very